That was the wake-up call. It's vreau să dorm. Lasă-mă în pace. Basically, we kept waking people up because it's time to go to get to ministry and all that stuff. Of course, we'd stay up late every night and not get enough rest. It's funny because he always said when I was a kid, you're going to lead thousands of people. Yeah, he would prophesy that kind of stuff to me. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but okay, cool. And then later, after starting these conferences and be thousands of people and leading with worship, I'm like, maybe this is what my grandpa was praying for me for and all this stuff. The beautiful thing that came out of that story was that's my wife back then was just a friend, was my medical project leader, Lavi. That's when she actually fell for me. She saw that I have no problem getting dirty, and just I'm a people person, and I love people, and I want to help people. I didn't know that till afterwards. I woke up at 3:33 a.m. fully awake, and I was just like, why? And I was like, God, why'd you wake me up? Why don't you bless me with a song? And I literally just prayed that, and he did, like that. So I was like, okay, thanks. I'm telling you, before I left, I knew God was calling me to go. Had no idea why. I had so many doubts. I was just like, this is not going to work. What am I going to do there? I can't use my skills there, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. Well, yeah, you tell God what you can and can't do and see what happens.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Make Your Life Count, the podcast produced by Charity Cup. I want to just remind you the reason this podcast is called Make Your Life Count, because it's the motto for Charity Cup. And we at Charity Cup believe that you can make your life count the most by investing in God and people, because those are the only two things that are eternal. And so if you want to make the most of your life, invest in God and people. So this podcast features stories meant to inspire you to live your life in that way. So we're bringing another story that embodies that very, very great. I would say extremely. He's not only a friend of mine, but he's also a part of the Charity Cup Ministries. So he's very familiar with what we do. But most of the people that we're involved in on the board, they kind of wear a lot of different hats. And this gentleman happens to do that. He's been part of the ministry from the very beginning. You guys will get to hear the story and the journey, how he got to where he's got. He's not involved in the ministry of Charity Cup. He's involved in other ministries, especially in the worship ministry. He's a music worship leader. He's a great friend. He's also a physical therapist. I'm not going to spoil it for you. I'll let him introduce that. But without any further ado, please help me welcome to the podcast a dear friend of mine, John Dobrea. Dobrea.
Yeah, it depends what language you choose, right? Yeah, it's good to be here. Bora, good to see you. Yeah, I'm glad to be here, and let's get the show on the road. I'd love to talk about making life count.
John, this has been a long time in the making. I know when I've been kind of going back and forth setting this up. Thank you for making the time to join. I'm really excited about this episode because I really think it embodies the whole premise of the show, Make Your Life Count.
Right.
So John, for you and the audience, the way kind of the structure of this show is, I want to begin a little bit with sort of why we're talking, sort of your current resume from a professional standpoint, ministry standpoint, and just where you're at with your family. And then I want to go back into the past and see how you got to this point. What motivated you to live your life in this way? So if you don't mind, if you could just give us a small resume of where things are at with you right now.
Sure. So make your life count. You said one of the most important things is one of the ways to make your life count is to invest in God and people, right? So because they're eternal. So I'll start with a professional part because to me, that's the boring part, right? To me, that's just a way to make a living and provide for your family. But I try to make that fun too. And not only that, but also with the same mentality of making life count, in that I chose to be a physical therapist. The physical therapist deals with people day in and day out. And I get to I get to talk to people every day. I get to, hear stories. I'm a home health physical therapist now, so I go into people's homes, which is great. I've met a lot of great people, a lot of people that uh, supported Charity Cup, like even financially or through prayer. I've even had patients that I'd go on a mission trip and they'd stop me and they say, "Hey, can we pray for you?" I'm like, "Yes, absolutely." And these, and in the society we live now, that's kind of like, keep religion and stuff out of the workplace. But this has allowed me to kind of bridge that gap a little bit. So that's professionally. I got my master's in physical therapy back in a long time ago, and then I've been doing that ever since. On the spiritual side, in 1995, I joined what back then started as Mission One, which was a worship team that kind of broke the mold between Pentecostalism and Baptist in the Romanian community here in Southern California, and also broke the mold on the style of worship, more contemporary, more energetic, that style, which is now currently one of the main ways people worship, which was unheard of a lot in a lot of Romanian communities and churches. So that was 95. In 96, I believe, we met up with these vagabonds, uh, Bora, the man standing in front of you, and Daniel Herdin. And we started, providing some music at some of these Charity Cup soccer tournaments. And at that point, Kat Yuga and George Purac really, joined with Charity Cup very strongly, saw the vision. And then I came alongside that too. Um, saw the vision of going out into the world and making life count and all that. So that was in 96, started serving locally in 2001, which was our first mission tour, I believe, to Moldova. I went on that one as the music group, not as a physical therapist, as a music group to provide music and worship for, the activities that we did. And then after 2001, so I finished. That was while I was still in college. In 2002, I graduated, and then 2003, I became a physical therapist. And then in 2004 was my first year back to serving on the Charity Cup mission tours, and then I came as a physical therapist. That was 2004, and then every year I would serve 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009 by going. I've been to Honduras, been to Tanzania, been to Moldova, Romania, been to on a bunch of mission trips, and I mean, I till the day I die, I will recommend that to anybody all day long to go on short-term mission trips. And if you're called to long-term, do it. But short-term mission trips are life-changing. They put things in perspective, and they made me realize what make life count means. And the other great thing was I met my wife there. So as a lot of people in Charity Cup have met their spouse there. So that's kind of the big picture of how it evolved. And then I forget what year, but along that path in the mid 2000s, I became one of the board members of Charity Cup, and I started serving at that level. On Charity Cup board, we started having kids, my wife and I, and then we kind of stepped away, for that time period until they grew up a little bit older from going on mission trips. But we served in the board and core and other ways. In 2024, I believe, yeah, 2024, I had the pleasure of actually taking my daughter, my eldest daughter, back to on the mission trip and going to Tanzania with her, and taking her out there. And it was one of the best mission trips just to see my daughter being involved and having a heart for it too. So that's kind of the evolution, if you want to use that word, of, the last, I don't know, 20 to 30 years of serving. And I mean, my passion, my calling, if you want to call it that, is worship leading, right? Leading worship, and that has always been since 1995, since I was 18 years old when I picked up a guitar. Ever since then, it's always been um, what I love to do, what I'm passionate about, what I want to do, and that ministry has evolved too on how it started and where I'm at now. And but yeah, and I serve as a worship leader in my local church, Agape Christian Church in Orange County, and that church has been a huge blessing for us since we've joined that church. So that's kind of the big picture, rough CV, if you want to call.
So right now you're currently serving as a worship leader at a church, which has a big impact, I believe, locally there, and apparently not just locally, but there's teenagers flying there to be with your church and with your youth group, and they happen to be at your house, and I would say that's a ministry in itself.
Because yeah, we have 11 out of towners, teenagers from 14 to 17 at our house right now. They don't understand what bedtime means, so that's kind of cool. But neither did we when we were at that age. So they're having a good time. They're good, great kids, and yeah, they came down for a youth retreat in Big Bear, California.
John, so I want to ask you a little bit on that, which wasn't planned to talk about that, but why do you guys, like you and as a fan, why is that important to you guys to have? Because this is not the first time. This is like a repeat of, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times. I know I've been there a couple of times when they were there. Why is that important to you guys?
Uh, so growing up and being friends with you, for example, or Herdine or other people in our lives has shown us what it means to have good godly friendships, what it means in making life count, right? Being surrounded by people that love the Lord first, and then their relationships are built around that, and that's what we want to foster for our kids, right? And having them hang out with Herdian's kids or Kat's kids or George's kids, or these kids that they've actually gone on mission trip to Tanzania together, your sister's kid, like, I mean, they're wholesome, good people that love the Lord and want to further his kingdom at 15, 16 years old. That's amazing. And my prayer was always like, I don't need to be a millionaire, but I would love to have a house where I can host people, and people, this can be a hub, and I'll work as hard as I need to, but people can come and go in our house anytime. And so God's been I've been great. Like, he provided that, and and as long as we have this house or whatever, that'll always be an open
So,
door.
John, I want to tell you that I've been a beneficiary of your hospitality, yours and Lavi's, of your beautiful home, and I truly felt like you guys took this as a ministry. I happened to be there many times with a bunch of other people, and including these teenagers,
Right.
and I'm like, wow, that is so cool that these guys are taking it so seriously to, be these gracious hosts. And I'll never forget. I think that's a great example for us. You have that guest book, which I happen to really think that's really cool. I don't know if it's that tied to that verse potentially that you may have hosted angels. How did you come up with the idea?
The idea was, so like I said, I've always wanted to be a house of hosting people, like people coming through the city, coming through to visit the church or visit or whatever. Like, always wanted that. And the book, we started right when we bought our first house, basically, our first, which was a condominium. And we always wanted to kind of remember when people came over. So the only requirement, you write whatever you want in it, but I just want to see the date. And obviously, with what occasion did you come? Did you come for a meeting? Did you come for work? Did you come for a church event? All that stuff. So, and it's always a blessing to go back and read them. It's actually really is. Um, but I've always been open to hosting, always, always. And man, if angels have been through here,
You know the verse I'm
great.
talking
But
about, right? You're familiar? Okay,
yeah, oh
yeah.
yeah, yes, 100%, yeah.
John, I know this was not part of the podcast, but I'm telling you, I believe this is a huge ministry that you guys are taking care of these teenagers and making these relationships happen to what we discussed. And it is really embodies, I would say, even the Charity Cup and Mission One spirit of connecting people and the fellowship. Everybody thinks ministry is all about like the technical stuff, but it's really, I think it
Right.
happens in the off moments, in what you guys are doing there, these teenagers coming over. I remember I was there last time, and I think you guys, I don't know, you might have had like 30, 40 teenagers eating
It was
pizza.
a ton. Yeah,
Dude,
you lose count.
I mean, I don't even know if they'll realize the value of that moment and you guys hosting them and providing. I think it's an amazing ministry in itself, for that you guys are
I think
loving.
they will later.
Like,
I think they would. I mean, how many times have we visited your parents, and like your mom and dad have hosted us and sat down with us and talked to us? Like, those are treasured moments. Yeah, they're not our age, but it doesn't matter. They hosted us. They give us a place to you sit, to sleep, and to eat. Like, I think in the in the big scheme of things, I think they will think about it. Maybe not now because they're, young and they're just trying to hang out and all that. But yeah, you said something very cool. Relationships, Charity Cup. Do you remember the summits? We did those summits. That's what those are about: is creating relationships and being the more unified, so that when you go on a mission trip and you serve, you know each other. You can, you vibe off each other. You do ministry together. So and yeah, I'd love to. It's just a house. It's just like walls, and gives them opportunity to get together.
So I mean, John, that's exactly what this podcast is about, because I think people will always picture, well, the interview should be with like these missionaries or pastors, and that's exactly the point. Not
Right.
necessarily, because you can use the current resource they have, your house, your job, and that's the encouragement we want to give people. Like, there's a lot of skills and things that you can use to further God's kingdom, and that, I think, is a great example. Just you guys hosting, you being a physical therapist, and kind of approaching with a kingdom mindset. And then
Yeah.
obviously there's this other aspect, which is directly being involved, which we're going to jump into, but I just wanted to kind of give some time to that. So right now, it
Yeah.
sounds like you're very involved in the local church. I happen to see the professionalism that you guys are taking to that, to the worship, to the everything that happens in that church. If you want to maybe speak to that a little bit, in maybe on the worship part, what part you have in that.
Yeah, so when, obviously when I was 18 and I first started, I just wanted to play guitar and, and sing, and you just be part of a band, right? At that point, it didn't have many goals. But as I matured and as I grew, and I grew spiritually and understood what worship is, and how Christ actually calls us, it's an act of obedience. It's not yeah, you guys should worship, and maybe if you feel good about it, do it. No, no, it's an act of obedience. And I think John 4:23-24, where it says, and God will have, where he asks us, and he says, you must worship in spirit and in truth. He says you must. He doesn't say you should. He says you must. So coming together to worship or doing it by yourself is an act of obedience. It's something that Christ asks us and tells us, this is what you must do. And then on the so as I was, growing and understanding this, I grew spiritually, and raised in a Baptist church, moved to a Pentecostal church. It was there's a lot going on with that, right? So just understanding the simple fact of lifting your hand, it's an act of worship. Doesn't mean you're, I don't know, there's such, in the Romanian community, there's such a, uh, that's the word, a faux pas. Like, what's this guy doing raising his hands? No, it's biblical. And, we have so many examples in the Psalms. Like, I mean, probably hundreds of worshiping through music, right? Through song. David wrote so many songs, and it says that he praise him with your this instrument, with that instrument, with your voice. There's so many different examples just in the Psalms. So yeah, when we get together in a church environment, that part is very integral, and it's very, very important in the life of the church. That and the word. Everything else is kind of, there's a lot of filler and whatnot, but act of worship through song and the word is very important. So as I, learned to play guitar, started singing a little bit, started leading a little bit, there was a lot of learning that I did through leading. A lot. I made a lot of mistakes, and I learned from them. But the reason I learned from them was because other people taught me, right? So people were open to tell me, to criticize me constructively and tell me like, hey, you're doing this wrong, or careful when you do this. And so by listening and by being open and being teachable, I learned. Now, I'm still teachable at 48. Like, there's still more to learn from that aspect, and I'm very teachable. But as I've aged and I've grown, now what I want to do and what I focus on is raising this new generation, young worship leaders, like, just making myself available. Like, hey, if you have questions, or if you want to, all the young worship leaders at our church, I tell them all the time, I'm like, hey, when you lead worship, make sure you have like a prayer team behind you. Be it your parents, be it your siblings, be your parents and your siblings, somebody else, your friends. But just like when you lead worship, because it's not just let's go sing some songs. It's a very important thing that we do in church. So, and I tell them like, hey, if you need that, if you want me to be that person, like, let me know. I'll gladly keep you in prayer as that week as you prepare, whatnot. You want to be criticized constructively, I'd be more than happy to do that. And I'll always, always do it out of love. And I tell them that I'm not here to shut you down. I actually wanted to tell you this so you build up and you grow and you foster growth. So that's kind of more of the transitioning more mentorship, like, like, hey, how are you going to put these two songs together or these three songs, or what are you going to say before you get up there, like to encourage the church to join you in worship? So that's how it's kind of evolved, right? So now I'm not leading worship all the time, once every 4 to 6 weeks. And even that, like, I'm okay to give that up and make it rare if somebody younger would take that realm and to give them that opportunity.
So basically, currently right now, you're leading worship so from behind the scenes at your church currently, or you're
No, I'm doing it. I'm doing it live. Like this Sunday morning, I led worship, for example, at our church. But uh, I try to be very intentional with my conversations, you know, and I'm doing it from that perspective. In the Romanian community, we don't have unfortunately, we really don't have like a structured like discipleship or mentorship program and stuff. So, um, I make myself available for those that want it, or want it from me, I guess. But yeah, from backside, and even the music director that's at our church, like, I try to tell him a lot of times, like, hey, that's a good idea to do that. I don't know if that's a good idea. He's younger than me, so I mean, again, I do it out of love because I want him to succeed, you know? Uh, I don't do it out of like, I'm trying to take your spot. I don't care about that. Like positions, we're here to worship Christ and let's do that. Focus on that. So, yeah, so I guess we're on behind the scenes, but I do it also live.
Yep. Okay. And I know you guys have a very dynamic worship experience team. I know I believe you're also involved in the Christmas program, because I think I've seen just a snippet of it, and I heard you're very busy because that's going on. So what's your role in that?
Yeah, that's the very fun. My role in that is just acting if I'm needed. So I do a little bit of acting in it. And last Christmas was not this Christmas that just passed, but the one before this Christmas we didn't do it. But last Christmas when we did a whole play with music, it was a musical. It was really good, and I was one of the actors, and I had a lot of fun with that. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, and it was great. But yeah, I mean, I always make myself available, like
That's cool.
if there's something needed. And Dave leads that with Adi Pope. They lead that ministry, the special services, and they put these dramas together, and it's super fun. But I serve in that perspective, and then I just I support Dave and Adi with whatever they need if they need anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
John, I know on the Charity Cups, you're also involved with leading the golf tournaments. I don't know where
yes.
things are at with that, if you want to just say a few words.
So yeah, we did I think 4 golf tournaments so far, and once COVID hit, that put a big wrinkle in it. And now I want to revive it. I want to bring it back. So hopefully, I wanted to do it in 2025 so bad, and just did not get around to it because life is just crazy busy. But hopefully in 2026, I want to. It's a golf tournament. It's a scramble format. It's to raise funds for the Charity Cup Ministries, and it's a fun day. And yeah, if you're ever interested to joining us and you're listening to this podcast, I don't know if you'll put my info at the
We
end,
will. We
but
definitely will.
yeah, reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to keep you apprised of
John,
that.
how did the last one go? If you can maybe give us a quick synopsis.
It was the most successful one, and obviously, I mean, it's a fundraiser, right? So it's not. It has. And the spiritual aspect of it is presenting the ministries. So we had 66 players show up, Americans, Romanians from all over the country, and then full field is 144. So that's the ultimate goal, is to fill the field, right? To get as many players as possible. But the real work I'm putting out together at Charity Golf Tournament is actually in raising the funds, and that comes from sponsorships. So companies will sponsor a whole, and they'll donate money, and then that's how money is raised with the golf tournaments. There more and more Romanians are getting into golf, believe it or not. I know our generation was huge into soccer, and they still are, but there's more and more people getting into golf because it's a sport you can play till your dying day. I know 90-year-old people that play golf and play it well. So, and it's a pretty tough sport. But anyway, so that's kind of the golf ministry fundraiser, if you want to call it. Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm assuming nowadays in your 30s, you probably prefer playing golf anyway.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, good, John. Let's keep up that healthy habit. That's really cool.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, man, we're in our 30s now. What the? Okay, anyway, we'll leave the jokes aside. But so,
Yes.
John, that's really cool. I know I was part of one of the golf tournaments. It was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time. Of course, I wasn't great at it, but the teammates really helped us along. Myself and Mike, who played in it. Okay, so kind of that's where things are at right now. It sounds like your major involvement in ministry has to do a lot with your church and the worship department.
Mhm.
Um, also on the Charity Cup board, and obviously as hopefully we'll prep another a golf tournament. And as we mentioned, I think what you guys are doing with the kids is amazing. Now, I want to kind of go back a little bit and see where sort of this desire for you to serve and this passion kind of comes from, and maybe dive deeper a little bit into the history and like, where did you come from? Who's John Dobrea? Where is he coming from?
Um, so John Dobrea moved to America in 1988 when he was 11 years old. As a kid, I had a grandpa in my life that loved me dearly before I moved to America. And he invested a lot in me in the love of Jesus, loving Jesus. He actually probably instilled in me the love for music. I remember he'd put me to bed as a little kid and he'd play Fratele Moldovan tapes.
You're
Yeah.
kidding.
Nope.
I did not know that, John.
Yeah, and I'd go
My
to bed
dad,
with that stuff.
wow.
Yeah. And he'd play 'em for me and all that, so but, I'm assuming that's what I don't know, I mean, life once you come to America, life was totally different, right? It was like a slap in the face, like, "Whoa, what is this?" So, as an 11-year-old, but, yeah, that's how that stuff started. We came here in '88, and my parents were not baptized, because they came from a communist country. That's a whole different story. But anyways, they got baptized once they're here, so they were like 40 when they got baptized, and we started attending a Bethel Baptist Church in Anaheim, which was pastored and still is by Pastor Daniel Bronze. As a family, we went there, served there until about '99, and that's when I moved to Emmanuel Church, which was pastored at the time by Pastor Lazar Gog. In
Mhm.
2016, I decided
John,
to leave the
go
Romanian
ahead.
community and see how the Americans do it. And in 2016, we left Emmanuel Church as a family, me, my wife, and our kids, and we went to an American church called Eastside, still here locally. And we served there till probably 2019, 2020. Um, and there I learned a lot. I learned a lot, and not only I learned things, but a lot of the things that I thought I knew were confirmed. Um, and one of the biggest things that I learned at the American church was intentionality. Everything they did with intentionality. Like they meant to do this so that this happens afterwards. Everything from the programs, from whatever ministry they did, they all had goals. They all had, why are we doing this? This is why. So I really, that was really hammered into me, and I try to bring that into the Romanian community. Like everything that I do with a purpose, and with intention. So, and then in 2019, 2020, I came to Agape Church, and started serving there. Um, I mean, where did the probably the missions, man? I don't know. We'd always back in when we used to be at the Bethel Baptist Church as teenagers and stuff, we'd go on mission trips, right? We called them mission trips, but all they were like we'd go with the youth choir to another church. So I was like, how's this is not a mission trip? This is you just going singing at another church. Like you're just serving the local church, which is there's nothing wrong with it. It's great. But I was like, that's not a mission trip. So when we met up with the Charity Cup, life, I was already established with doing the music ministry with Mission One, so I was like, okay, this would be a good combo, a little. And then I went to the first mission trip, and I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what mission trips are: helping the needy, helping the poor, and evangelizing and telling people about Christ. And so yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And my grandpa, again, he was a big influencer till the age of 11 on that. Like, he tell me and constantly spent time with me on teaching me this stuff, teaching me faith, and teaching me, yeah. And the crazy
John,
thing is, but he looks exactly like me. It's
nice,
crazy.
nice, nice, nice. John,
Yeah.
where are you guys from in Romania? Is it Bucharest?
No, I am from, so I was born in Lugoj, Romania, which is on the west. It's about 60-minute drive from Timișoara, and
Yep.
that's where my grandparents were, and I was born there. But my parents lived in Timișoara because that's where they worked. And so when I went to school, I was in Timișoara, but vacations were always in Lugoj with grandpa and grandma.
I see. And honestly, I didn't know about the Moldoviano connection. I've interviewed some other people. Moldoviano had a lot of impact on a lot of people, including
Hmm.
myself. My dad is a huge, huge fan of Moldoviano. I'm because of him myself too. So it's interesting that he's had this major impact in your life.
Yeah,
And I think that's amazing. The testimony. I wish I could interview him, but unfortunately
I
he's not
know.
with us. So, but
Yeah.
John, okay, so you got to the States. You were 11. Sounds like that's why you kind of begin your journey at the church there. How did you get involved with? So you started leading worship before you became involved with Mission One, or was it the other way around? How did
No,
that?
it was so. No, it wasn't before Mission One. It was because of Mission One. So, because
Mhm.
before that, there was no worship in the church, especially in the Baptist church. There was cantar en común, right? Some guy would get up to the pulpit and just start a song with the organ and sing a hymn. Basically, it was a hymn, and sing a hymn, and then okay, that's it. There's no um, act of worship per se. I mean, I get it. It could both be an act of worship, but it wasn't like what modern worship looks like these days. So it wasn't that. But then when, Mission One came about, I'm like, oh, this is it. This is what worship. It's a full band, it's full instruments, and yeah, and then joined Mission One, and then after that started being more involved in worship. Try to start a worship band at Bethel Baptist Church. That didn't work out because, again, the culture didn't allow for it, right? And that's one of the biggest reasons why I moved to Emmanuel Church, the Pentecostal church, is because they did allow, and they did, that was one of the main ways they worship. So I was like, well, I want to learn more about this because this is what I think worship is.
So John, so I didn't know. Basically, at Bethel, you weren't able to sort of, I don't know, I guess exercise worship as maybe you thought it
Correct.
should be. Hmm.
Correct.
And then for people that are not familiar with Mission One, we did a little bit of a deep dive when I had Kat on, but maybe you have a very different perspective. If you can kind of fill the audience in, how did that start and what exactly did the Mission One do?
So initially, one of the main goals of Mission One was to bring the youth together from the Baptist side and the Pentecostal side, and bring us together, unite in worship and word. Right. So we put on these conferences. We'd have the Mission One team was made up of individuals from like 4, 5, 6 different churches, Baptist, Pentecostals, whatever. We got together, we rehearsed, and we played, and we led people in worship, and we'd put on these conferences. We call them Mission One conferences, where the youth would come. There'd be a worship team, which is us, and then we'd have a word, or sometimes there were skits, there were plays, one sermon, two sermons, and it evolved from one night to like a whole weekend thing where people would come Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, and we'd also provide seminars where we would teach on Saturday mornings. People would come to seminars, and we'd have people teach on certain topics, so you can pick and choose what you want to learn. So it was basically almost like a youth conference before there were youth conferences.
Yes, I remember that, and I didn't have the privilege of being part of like Mission One conference, but I know it rubbed off on a lot of what maybe the conferences are today. So that's really cool. So you were handling more of the music aspect of things, leading the band.
Yeah, and I only started leading the band, I believe, in 1999. Until then, there was other people leading the band. Initially, I was just playing the acoustic guitar. I was just like, I'm just here to play the acoustic guitar. But I think in 1999, if I'm not mistaken, correct, that's when I started leading the band. The first leader of the band of the team was Adi Pope. Then it was Bebe Apahidian, and then it was me, from what I remember. I don't know. There was also Paul Amiga in there too, and then it was me. So,
I
and then
see.
after that, it was just yeah. So
So
that's how that evolved.
So what drew you kind of into this? This was a huge commitment. I mean, this is going back quite a while, but I guess what drew you into that? What made you spend a big chunk of your life doing that?
The love of worshiping Christ, like just, my Savior, my Redeemer, and just, and spreading that opportunity to worship Him, like, you know, creating that opportunity for youth to just commune with Him and just, spend time with Him in that environment, in that worship environment where you bow down to His throne, to His feet, and you worship Him. It's and we didn't have that. I mean, we didn't have that back then. We really didn't. We just kind of, had hymns, had fanfara, orchestra, and choir, and okay, you go to church and you listen, and that's all you do. You listen. You don't. You may sing a hymn here and there for collecta, but there's no like act of worship where you're engaged and it's just you and Christ.
I'm curious if your grandfather knew what you were doing and what he thought about it, or
He passed away pretty early. Shoot, I don't remember how old I was when he passed away, but he passed away before I got a lot heavier into it,
I see.
so
Okay,
he didn't know. But he, it's funny because he always said when I was a kid, he's like, he's always telling me, he's like, you're going to lead thousands of people. You're going to lead thousands of people. You'll see. Yeah, he would prophesy that kind of stuff to me. And I'm
really?
like, whatever, dude. I don't know what the heck you're talking
He's
about.
a
Like,
Baptist. What are you talking about?
I know, right? But he was like, I I pray over you because I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what that means, but okay, cool. And then later, after I started these conferences and be thousands of people and leading with worship, and I'm like, then the thought came, I'm like, maybe this is what my grandpa was talking about, what he was praying for me for, and all this stuff. So,
What was your parents' reaction to that? I'm just curious. How did your parents?
they were very supportive. I'm blessed, man, with amazing parents. They were very supportive and very, very I mean, their kid wasn't hanging out at bars and stuff. He was going to play Christian music with his friends from church. Like, how can you not be supportive of that? Like, as a right? So
Yeah.
they totally supported it. I mean, they financially they supported me, uh, like paying for a car so I can go places, plane tickets when we travel. They totally supported me and they encouraged me and they came to when we led worship. I'd have deep conversation with my dad about worship and stuff, and it was kind of cool because they're like I would teach him a few things, right? Which it should be the other way around, but because of that older generation, they didn't know that. So it was interesting.
I, I think that's really cool because again, I've run into all kinds of parents. They didn't quite get what we're trying to do, or if you're not a mission trip, sometimes say, maybe there's better ways to spend your money. But then
Right.
later on, anyway, that's a whole nother chapter. But I want to tell you something, John, that I found out just recently, which was a surprise to me, a pleasant surprise. But did you know that Kat got to know Christ because of your dad? Did you know
Yes.
that?
Yeah, I
Oh, so
did.
you guys knew that. Okay. It was just
Yeah.
a surprise to me.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool, man. I did not know that, and I thought that was really cool.
I didn't know that right like initially, but I only found that out like I don't know, maybe somewhere between 5 to 10 years ago. I didn't know that initially, for a long time, and I was like, "Wow, I didn't know that." I when he told me, I was like, "Wow, that's so cool." So
I He was mentioning how your dad was very bold and pretty much like spoke into his life, like
yeah,
the truth, and I thought I didn't know that, so that was really cool. Breaking news for me.
yeah.
So I want to ask you something else regarding worship, since we're kind of on this topic, and obviously in this conference. Um, I don't know, how do you view worship? I mean, you may have already touched upon this, but the way I've like kind of always thought about it is maybe before the word, there's like this bulldozer that has to go and kind of clear the walls. I don't know if that's how you, but I guess that's how I saw it in my mind. Like that's what worship does, sort of paves the way for the word to come in and be able to fall on the right ground. How do you view it?
Um, so there's what's gonna happen in heaven? Are we gonna have preaching and the word and all that?
That's a good point. Yeah, you're
We're
right.
not gonna have any of that. We're gonna have worship. So uh worship to me is a way to connect with Christ one on one, and to it's just you and him. It's just, it doesn't matter if it's a congregation full, whatever, it's always you and him, and that's it. And that's what I always encourage people. Forget the what Jika's doing on the left and what Mitika's doing on the right. Like, it's not about them. It really isn't. It's just about how you and Christ are communing and together. And that's an act of work. That's worship. I don't think of worship as a warm up. A lot of people warm up for the word. Honestly, maybe I'm biased because I'm a worship leader, but I mean, if the words, the lyrics are wholesome and they're Christ centered, I mean,
That is
there's
the
word in
sermon.
that. That is a sermon. It could be a sermon. It can minister to you directly. Like, just two lines of a song can hit you and be like, that's what I need. That's it. Not 5 points with 500 points and all that. Obviously, I'm not saying the word's not necessary. It definitely is, because we have to grow and we have to learn and we have to mature and all that. Of course, absolutely. But like, I don't see one as more important. I don't see the word, like preaching, not the word, but preaching, more important than worship. Because you can go to church and you can just listen to a sermon, and you learn about Christ, but the worship gives you the opportunity to be with Christ. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how I view worship.
I
That's
was just gonna mention one thing that my mom actually, I would say, I don't know if got saved, but I guess you could say she came out of the world. And what kind of broke down the walls for her, it was actually the fanfara, and
oh
it had this. I don't know. I guess it had this big role, right? Fanfara to me it ties to music, and
yeah,
that's kind of what attracted her to kind of take the path towards Christ. And yeah, so that's just a testimony to how powerful music is.
yeah. Music is very powerful.
So obviously we started to we'll maybe get a little bit in the kind of the history of like how Charity Cup and Mission One sort of merged together, and the teams kind of became one. But I want to tell you, John, one of my fondest moments, I have a few with you, but one of them I remember seeing you leading worship in a few different scenarios. I've seen you lead worship in front of hundreds of people. I've seen you lead worship in front of just a few people in just a circle of friends. I've seen you lead worship in Moldova in front of various crowds, poor, rich, young, old. And I've seen you lead worship even at my wedding, and I'll tell you one thing that I always appreciate about you. I feel like sometimes worship leader, they're like deaf tone to the audience, and they don't quite, I don't know, I feel like there's no connection to the audience. They kind of go up there and they do their thing, and there's no. And I always appreciate that. I thought about what you were doing. You kind of felt a room, and maybe what I need to do in this moment. It doesn't have to be the script. Like, okay,
Right,
I'm gonna get up there, sing a few songs, and that's it. It felt
right.
like I'll tell you what I mean by that. There was sometimes I said, hey, I don't need instruments. I'm just gonna sing a cappella, and I felt it was the right thing to do at that moment. And you read the crowd really well. And așa parcă, kind of muy pe inimă, as they say.
Mhm.
Where does that come from? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because you can
So
mechanically do a lot of
yeah.
things.
That came from a lot of maturing. So initially, when I first started, I'm like, no, this is the only way. Like, this is the worship should be like this, you know. And then as I matured and I understood, like, no, man, that's not what it's about. It's about the people that you're serving. It's them. You have to serve them. That's what you're there for. Yes, you sing to Christ and you're worshiping Christ. But if it's not just me in a room, then it's just me and Christ. But if I'm actually leading, then you got to serve the people in front of you, and you got to uh, be wise about that. You can't just, like you said, you can't just like, well, I got these three songs and that's it. I'm doing them this way and this style, and like that. No, it doesn't. I don't think that that's how it works. And I think reading the room is very important. Or sometimes I'll lead a song at church. I'll think it's, wow, what a cool song, what a good song, what great lyrics. And I sing it and I look at the crowd and the crowd's just staring at me, you know? And I'm like, okay, well, this song will never be sung again because obviously people aren't connecting to it. So reading the room is very, very important as a worship leader. Um, and there's a lot of dying to self because like there's so many songs that I loved and I wanted to do, but I can't do them. Like it just can't. So just do them at home in my private worship time, but I can't do them congregationally. So, but yeah, it came from a lot of maturing and growing, and I've never not always been like that. In my younger days, I made a lot of mistakes, like I told you, and did some things that were not like I'm gonna say not godly. They weren't like evil or anything, but they were just done with what's the word? Being naive, I was naive about things. I don't know. So, and that's what I'm trying to get the younger worship leaders to not make those mistakes, right? My dad taught me this. I remember being in high school and he's like, son, learn from other people's mistakes. Don't make them. There's no, if somebody's made a mistake before you, learn from them. There's no need for you to repeat that. So I took that to heart back in high school.
Yeah, there's a saying, I think, if you, I don't want to botch it up, so I'm not going to bring it up, but basically, it's better to learn from others. Yeah, it's good to learn from hitting your head too, but if
Yeah.
you don't hit your head. But anyway, John, so that to me was, I always had some fond memories of you leading the worship. Like I said, whether it was a core retreat, whether it was a summit, like you mentioned, or whether it was just a few people in the room.
Yeah.
And I felt like he wasn't just mechanical. Well, okay, I got to do this now, so I'm just gonna,
All right.
and I always appreciate that sometimes you didn't have the instruments around you to help you, and that's okay. That's what you kind of you understood. It's not about the instruments, and it
Right.
has to always sound like,
Right.
I don't know,
It doesn't.
stereo.
Right.
If you have more thoughts on that, please share with the audience.
The setting matters, right? Like you said, if it's a room with just like 5, 10 people, it's going to be different than if it's a church, right? Uh, and if it's going to be different if it's a church that is used to singing hymnals, constantly, versus the church that's used to singing contemporary worship, right? So you got to adjust. Even with Mission One, I mean, we'd go to these like churches that were very narrow-minded and very whatever, and we wouldn't sing any of our songs. We'd sing like Diniel Priniel Shipentruel, we'd sing like older Romanian songs because that was who we were serving, right? So as much as I wanted to, do a Newsboys song or something like that, I had to do these older ones, which was okay because you're serving those people. So you got to read the room, look who you're serving, and serve them. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Mission One was basically about connecting people and breaking down these walls. And then somewhere in the 2000, like early 1999, we met. We didn't really know each other. I don't know if you know. Um, when I originally sort of met you guys, I told Kat this too. I heard about you guys, especially the Tsifra brothers. They were from Arad. They were friends of my family. So I knew that somebody was telling me, Lidia Lupash, to be quite frankly, she was like, there's this band and this group on the West Coast. You guys got to meet them. And then I don't know, somehow I found that Filu and Dani are involved in that. And I'm like, oh, they happen to be family friends. Anyway, that's what I knew about you. It was like this enigma a little bit. Back then, there was no Facebook. But then you guys came to Bethesda when they had their opening of the dedication of the new building they were going into. And you guys were like special guests there. I don't know if you remember that, but I remember
going. I remember staying at Lydia's house. I remember some of that stuff. Yeah.
I mean, you guys are. I remember the feeling that I had when I was there, like, the Newsboys came to town, kind of thing, because
That's funny.
from the West Coast, people had a following. I think it wasn't just you. You usually came with a few people that followed you guys.
Oh yeah, we did. We always came with people. Yes, you're right.
Right, you brought people loved you. I mean, and I remember talking to George at the moment, I said, "Hey, I'm curious if you guys were willing to come to this small church." I don't know if you know the story, but there was a baptism that was happening in Windsor, which is a town neighbor. Lavi, right? Lavi's from Canada.
Lavi's from there. Yeah.
So she was from Toronto, but no, she lived in Windsor, right?
I believe so.
Yeah,
she lived in Windsor. Yeah.
There was a small church in Windsor. It kind of people from my church used to start going there. Anyway, just a few young people, and there's a baptism. And I remember calling and asking George, hey, would you guys be interested in coming possibly to sing at this baptism between the two services you guys are at? But there's a cappella. They don't like instruments, you know. I remember George was very willing to. For some logistical problems, you couldn't come. But to me, that was very impressive that this wasn't just a band that was willing to just go up on stage and that's all that
Right.
mattered. They were willing to serve in whatever capacity. And to me, that was really cool. The serving heart that you guys had as a team, you know. And then obviously later on when we had our tournament, you guys came and served there in the cold weather in
Yeah.
LA. I don't know if you
Yep.
remember that.
I remember that. Yeah, that's when I
So,
first met you guys. Yeah, I remember that.
and then that's when we agreed on, hey, let's do a little retreat in Colorado. If you remember, were you were
Yes, I
there
was
in
that. I
Breckenridge,
came to
right?
that one. Yeah.
Yep. So we all met up in the middle and said, hey, let's see if we can put together this mission trip in 2001. That's why mission tours are numbered by
Right.
a number, because it started in 2001. It was the first one. Honestly, that was a really cool. I'll always remember this moment, just flying there. Like, it was so official. We were meeting,
Yeah.
another group to see if we can, make this thing happen. I don't think we were planning to do more than just that trip, but I think we wanted to see if we could gel and work this together. So this summer, that's what we ended up doing. That anyway. You were mentioning that Brian staying in your house. I remember that song "Vreau să dorm." I was actually going to bring it up, and I wasn't sure if you came up with it or Brian,
It
but
was
now you
actually,
answer.
yeah, it was actually Fane Campian that came up with it. He's from Portland, and he came up to it, and it went something like this: Vreau să dorm, lasă-mă în pace. And it was basically, we kept waking people up because it's time to go, time to get to ministry and all that stuff. And of course, we'd stay up late every night and not, get enough rest. And yeah, he he came up with that song, and they just kept singing it, and that was the wake up call, basically.
But I think the cool part is that he doesn't speak Romanian, right?
Brian, no, but he learned a lot, and he still retains a lot of it. Like it's pretty amazing. Like, he retained a lot, and he still speaks some. Like, he catches me with a phrase, I'm like, huh? How do you know that? So yeah,
So
but he did.
he's at your house, you said, right now.
Yeah,
You
he
guys.
comes and goes. He got a job as a worship pastor for Mariners Church, which is a big mega church here in Orange County, and they're opening like campuses all over the county. And he's a worship pastor of one of the campuses, actually in Yorba Linda, where I live. So he lives in Colorado, and he's in the process of moving. So in this process, he's opened up my house to stay in my house, so he doesn't have to pay for lodging, and save him some money as he's figuring out the move. And he's just a good friend. So he's a great guy, and just, yeah, we've been in worship ministry together for years and years.
So obviously, if you see him, say hello.
We'll do.
But I remember that. I don't know, that song got etched. It was
Everybody,
very
it was
catchy.
so catchy.
So for the context, just for context for the people, I think you kind of brought it up. But the point is, when you're going on a mission trip, like, sleep is a luxury, right? And everybody wants to sleep in because there's so much going on during the day. By the time you get to sleep, you're exhausted, and then waking up, a lot of activities start pretty early in the morning. They're
Yep,
starting with chapel and prayer and with devotion. So that's a song that's very fitting, right? The rest of them, just leave me alone. So that's
absolutely.
cool. Kind of another moment that is etched in my mind regarding you. And that moment has to do with Sergio. I want to dive a little bit deeper into that story because I feel like it's very emblematic of your relationship with sort of Charity Cup and how you served, and then the way I remember you. And then we'll dive into some other stories. But can you take us back to that moment and break it down a little bit? How did that happen?
Sure. So in 2004, I came on, wanted to go on this Charity Cup trip and this mission trip as a physical therapist, which is what I do. And I quit my job so that I'd be able to go. And I went not knowing how I'm going to serve as a physical therapist, because physical therapy, it's not a quick fix. It's some we teach you how to fix things and we guide you along the way. And you have to do the stretches, the exercises that we teach you, and that fixes the imbalances in your body. So, I'm like, we're leaving for a 2 week trip. But like, what am I going to do in 2 weeks? That's not enough time for that. So that was my mindset. Went there. This amazing woman was leading the medical thing. Her name was Lavinia Pantea back then. Now it's Lavinia Dobrea. So I don't know what happened there, but anyways, you can deduce. But yeah, she was leading this project, and I was like, "Hey, how can I help?" And her and Adi Ambrosia said, "Hey, there's a gentleman that's been bedridden. He's about 30 years old. He's been bedridden for about 10 years, since 20, and he's basically bedridden because he went to the military, and then I forget the details. So if I'm wrong, I apologize, but like he went to the military and then he left the military and he didn't leave on a good note or something like that. I don't remember. And he was ashamed. So that brought shame to him and he didn't want to get out of his house. And or he got hurt in the military, but they told him that it's a life-changing injury, but it really wasn't. So he became bedridden. I think that's what it was. I don't remember. It's just been way too long. Um, but anyways, he's been bedridden living with his mom in this village, Tirnova, which is where we were serving. And they told me, hey, there's a physical therapist, go see if he can move, what he can do, like so we can get him out of the house and get him to be a 30-year-old man. So I went over there and I assessed him and I realized I'm like, this guy's not hurt. He's just been in bed and sitting for way too long. He just needs to get his muscles back up, his joints moving, ligaments stretched, tendons stretched, and met him, started teaching him some exercises to do. He started doing them in bed. I got him out of bed and I showed him like, hey, you can stand up, like you can do this. And that was 2004, right? So, and then in 2005, we came back again for the 2 week trip. And in 2005, we bribed them with a cell phone. And we said, okay, we'll give you a cell phone if you come to where we were staying, which was I think the high school of the village, in the dorms over there, and come over there and like we'll walk with you. Or we wanted to get him in the street, but he wouldn't go out of his house. He did not want his neighbors to see him. So we ended up taking him into the van, and we drove in. This is all at night, like under the cover of night, because he didn't want to be seen, to our place. And he walked for quite a bit. Once we got him to our headquarters, that's what I want to call it, to our headquarters, he walked for quite a bit. And I showed him like, hey, you can do this, you can get out, you can be a normal person. And we gave him a cell phone so he can be in touch with whoever he needed to be in touch with. And then it started, in the years come to follow, he just became a normal man and is moving around. He moved to Don Duchenne, where I believe he went to school, but he's holding a job, and I believe he has his own place now. And yeah, he's just a normal human being. So it's awesome.
So you basically rescued this guy from becoming o povoară, basically, on society, essentially, right? Because that's what he was headed. He was headed to become being taken care of by his mom.
He was already. He
Yeah.
has been taken care of by his mom for the last 10 years. Yeah.
Right.
And
So
his mom, yeah.
that
So
would have
he
been
was,
his life probably for a long time,
yeah,
if not forever. He would have died that way.
yeah,
Um,
probably. He probably would have had an earlier death because you know what the quickest way to die? This is a physical therapy saying. The quickest way to die is to sit and do
yeah,
nothing. To sit,
yeah.
your body will shut down.
That's
So,
interesting. So John, there's a couple of things that are in my mind that I want to ask you. First of all, what was going through your mind as you come from the States, probably from this very sort of cushy job, cushy place, dealing with the patients that you probably, I assume you had facilities, you had all kinds of nice equipment, and then going into this guy's house. And if I remember correctly, when I saw him either in a picture or in real life, I can't remember. It was not a pretty picture, right? This
no,
gentleman.
it was very smelly, the odor in there was poignant. It was pretty bad. I think I had a goatee back then, and I think I was trying to put like hand sanitizer like on my mustache up here, to kind of soak in that kind of smell instead of what was in that room. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah, you're right. I mean, from here I have equipment, I have aides, which are people that help me do things. So if I have something that's not clean or whatnot. I just have them do it, and they, but this, yeah, I went right into the middle of pretty bad situations. But you look, I guess, I don't know, you look past all that. I mean, you're there to serve people, and I chose a job that serves people. Like, that's what I do. I'm a people person. That's what I do. And I tried a different business, and I ran it, and it was okay, and it made money and stuff, but I just couldn't. I couldn't. It was a business where I didn't deal with people like face to face, and I couldn't do it. That's just not how it was built. So, yeah, I mean, it's nice what we have here in America, and when we go to work, and yeah, it's much better. But you go with the mindset of, hey, I'm gonna go serve people, so they're not coming to my world. I'm going to their world, so I have to um, assimilate to them and be part of their world.
Yeah. For broader context, just for the audience, this medical project that we're discussing is sort of part of a bigger project that we call Taking a Village by Storm. And essentially what we go is we go as a team and plant ourselves in this village and pretty much try to approach the village from every aspect. For young people, we do sports. For girls, we have like a girls ministry. Then there's a medical ministry that John's just speaking of, including like these home visits. It evolved a little bit over the years, but these are some of the main projects. We had like a kids ministry. We have a computer project we had going on. We were washing feet during. It was one of the projects, and I want to touch on that. But John, so I believe one of the medical projects is one of the most beautiful projects we have. I mean, they're all like dear to me because
Right.
like to you as well. Like it's
Yeah,
our kid,
absolutely. Yeah.
You can't love one or the other, but in some ways, I feel like that really touches to the heart of the matter. Like when you don't have money, well, you can go get a job or you can whatever. But when you're sick in bed, I feel like the medical just touches a much more
Yeah.
sensitive spot.
Yeah.
And especially when we go into people's homes and meet them where they're at. I don't think it's something that everybody could do. And I want to tell you that I really appreciated you for that experience because, like I said, I remember some of the scenes where we went to visit, or maybe you guys brought back pictures. I'm like, I don't know if I could do that. Um, and I think just if somebody's listening to this that's a physical therapist and you think your job is maybe just serving at home, there's a great way to serve
Yep.
overseas if you want to. But it's not
Yep.
going to be comfortable, that's for sure.
Yeah.
John, I remember another story you had brought up, something about a French teacher.
Yes, that was it was in the same village, and she was a French teacher that again was homebound for she was actually bedbound. She couldn't get up and walk. I forget exactly what was wrong with her legs. And her husband was blind due to diabetes. And obviously they weren't getting medical care, they weren't getting their meds, it was just a bad situation. And we went during one of the home visits, you go and you assess kind of what are the needs. We provide them with some basic food needs and stuff, and whatever the needs are. And then we're assessing to see, and she come to find out she she hasn't gone out of her house in I don't know how many years. Like, I have no idea, but I think it was decades. And they lived in basically a one bedroom kind of a house. It was like one side was the kitchen and the dining room, and one side was the bedroom, and that's it. And she was a French teacher of the local school there from, I think, first grade through eighth grade. I believe either that or the high school age. And back when she was young. So going to her house, she did have a wheelchair there, but she had no way of getting in and out of the house because the house was built where there were 6 steps to get up to the front door. Right. So great. Let's say she gets in the wheelchair, but there's no way to get out of there. So, and she couldn't get into the wheelchair either. Like, she never really did it because there was no point to it. But anyways, we went to their house, we assessed what the needs are, and then, we met with the medical team and stuff. And I said, well, let's get her out of the house. And like, well, how are we going to do that? Well, I mean, she has a wheelchair, or we had the wheelchair anyways. And we got the wheelchair there, and you know, I transferred her from her bed to the wheelchair. Um, and just got in there again. Smelly situation. Lady hasn't bathed in a long time, right? Like, it's not pretty, but got my arms underneath her armpit, lifted her up, and gently transferred her to the wheelchair. And then we had another one or two other guys there, wheeled her to the steps, lifted the wheelchair, got her down, and just started pushing her through the streets of Turnova. the coolest thing that happened was in the moment as we were wheeling her, all of a sudden she just starts bawling, and I'm like, okay, great, there we go. We like made this little lady cry now. We're trying to help her, and then I see another gentleman that was probably in his, I don't know, 30s or early 40s, coming towards her, and he's bawling, and I was like, what is happening here? Turns out the gentleman was her student back when he was a kid, and he remembered her, and he really loved her as a teacher, and he hasn't seen her in, like, again, like I said, decades, because she can't get out. So they just had a moment. They knew each other, and she knew who he was, even though, from, like, let's say, 6th grade to when you're 40, you change quite a bit. She knew right away who he was, called him by name, and they just connected, and they spoke for not long, just like 5 minutes. They weren't there because, teach, and it was just beautiful to see that, and just to give her that joy that, hey, get out of the house, see other people. You don't have to sit there and wait till people come see you. So, and yeah, and that actually, the other beautiful thing that came out of that story was that's when my current wife back then was just a friend, was my medical project leader, Lavi. That's when she actually fell for me. She saw that I have no problem getting in, getting dirty, and just I'm a people person, and I love people, and I want to help people. So yeah, that was beautiful. I didn't know
So
that until afterwards.
just to clear it up for the audience, current and only wife.
Yes, current. That's why I said current wife, but back then she was like, she wasn't a girlfriend. She wasn't, anything like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think the whole story with Lavi deserves a podcast of its own because she's really the founder of this medical team.
Right.
And
Right.
we'll dive into that hopefully with her one of the next few podcasts. But John, I think that makes it probably pretty special that here you are
Oh yeah.
doing in a way what you love to do. She was doing what she loved to do because like that was her vision. The whole
Yeah.
medical project, her vision. Here's this guy embodying probably what she had in mind happening. I don't know, maybe not to that extent because a lot of stuff we did was not to the extent we thought. Like a lot of things
Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
Nothing was really planned. What was planned was home visits, to go to people's homes, give them something, give them a bag of something, and talk to them, and tell them about Jesus and Jesus's love and who he is and stuff. And that happened every visit, but that wasn't. But what came, all the other things that came out of that, all the extra stuff, that wasn't planned. Like, I didn't go over there to, hey, let's lift this lady up and take her into the street. It was just supposed to be a visit. Get in, talk, hang out, pray with them, and then leave, right? Give them some stuff and make a connection, and maybe even make a connection for them with the local church there, that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, there was actually a physical aspect to it, which was really cool as a physical therapist. I didn't expect that at all. Like, I'm telling you, before I left, I knew God was calling me to go. I knew it. I had no idea why. And I had so many doubts. I was just like, this is not going to work. What am I going to do there? I'm just going to, like, I can't use my skills there. Right. Like, it doesn't make sense. Well, yeah, you tell God what you can and can't do and see what happens.
And I think a result of a lot of these servings was a church was left behind, and we'll probably go into that a little bit more in the next few questions that I have. But a church was left behind, and I believe Sebju started going to that church, or if not,
Mhm.
the neighboring church. I don't know if the French teacher, whatever happened to her, but I do remember that name that Adi brought it up many times. I believe for at least for a while, she was involved with the community that we formed
Yeah.
there. So
She definitely was. She has passed since. She has passed, but yes, she actually was. And the people that were in that church that we left behind, like you said, they did minister to her regularly, from what I remember.
I mean, we may have been with some of the last few voices that, in a way, had a chance to tell her about Christ. I
Yeah.
mean, she probably knew in some way, but I don't know if in a direct way, like the way we approach it. The word that came, the verse that comes to mind as you were telling the story is that the Word became flesh, and the reason I say that
Yeah.
is because many times when you preach the gospel, we do it like intangibly, like you preach to somebody, you write to somebody, you maybe teach them, right? But it's not necessarily physically, like where you go pick them up and you sort of spread the gospel like with this physical connection like you were having. I think that's something I don't know, something beautiful. And I think it takes a special gift. Honestly, I don't think a lot of people could do that. So, kudos to you,
It's
for the gift that
definitely
God has given you.
it's definitely unique for sure. So, um, I I mean that's I've never thought of that verse in that manner, the word became flesh. Like, yeah, like when you put your hands on somebody to help them, it's so different than when you're just, telling them. You're sitting there and you're like, but when you're actually showing, you make that physical connection between, humans, it's I don't know, it's something. I don't know what word to use it, but it's different. It's definitely different than just telling somebody, "Hey, Jesus loves you," And I think, the other verse, the hands and feet, right? Like, become the hands and feet, like the feet go there, right? Hands, put your hands on people and help them, like help them. So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I think it's very special what the medical team does. I always thought it's something amazing because, like I said, if you're poor or if, I don't know, you need help with, I don't know, other things, it's different than when your health is not good because there's no hope. The other roles that you took on, sort of after, and then in the later years, were kind of taking over the village project.
All right.
And I wanted to ask what your experience was with that. And I already mentioned the Village Project was something special because it kind of was a way to take over a whole entire town with all these projects. So it was a big project,
Yes.
right? When we went into Moldova, we would go into this camp and then we split up. And the people that went to the Village Project, it was usually the biggest team.
Right. Yeah, so we would usually have somewhere between 110 to 140 people that served in the Village Project, and we had all those projects that you mentioned earlier. Now, Dave started coming, I believe, in 2005. We took over the leadership aspect of the Village Project, and we saw our roles as basically assisting the leaders of each sub-project in doing their job. Like, we were there to provide what they need. What do you need to be successful? What can I do today to make your job easier and so you can meet your goals in a quicker, faster, easier way? So, that's why we started jobs. We would go from project to project. We would have meetings with the leaders every day, like before and after each day. And we'd one of our favorite things was on our desk. We always had we brought one of those things from Staples. I don't know if you remember. They're red. They're about this round, and it said you just push the button and it says that was easy. So anything there's a problem or an issue, we boom tackle it, and then we always say that was easy. Next, we always try to have a good positive outlook. Like, hey, we can solve anything. We have Christ on our side. We're here to do good things. Our focus is on doing God's work. It's not on like, oh, let's make sure Charity Cup is I don't know who. No, it was like, let's get this stuff done and let's get Christ's name and further his kingdom. And we knew that as long as those were our goals and that's what we were to do, God's on our side and it's possible. And man, one of the things, we've never had like anybody injured, anybody like nothing crazy. Like, it was bizarre. God's hands over us were just like, yeah, it was amazing. Bunch of yahoos. I mean, we were young. We had like 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds with us, 16-year-olds with us under our care, like in a third world country.
It was God's grace because I don't know if people know when we would go to Moldova, many of the years we would bring with us maybe so in total probably were 250 people at the initial camp before we split up into teams. So from the US, there'd be maybe 150 people, if not even more, just traveling there, besides the Romanian people that would travel there as well. And throughout all these years, through God's grace, nothing ever happened. Praise God. Like an injury. Maybe there was injuries, but nothing major or scandals. And it's through God's grace. There's so many moving parts, especially at the Village Project.
So many moving projects. I mean, it was, yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know of any organization that does that kind of stuff. I just don't. But
I mean, whenever we go into some place, we're definitely hands on. This is not it's not like a tour. Like
No.
I've gone and heard about other ministries in a way where you go and you're almost like a tourist. Like everything is very set up and you're like
Yeah.
walking within this matrix. It's not
Right.
like that here. We're getting down into the weeds with you, you know, with the people
Yeah.
that are there. And that's what you guys are doing. So you and Dave were basically, like you said, leading a bunch of yahoos essentially, and had to keep them focused.
Yeah.
So John, if you can tell us if, you know, maybe some interesting experience from this leadership role and the Village Project, if you remember any.
Yeah, I mean, there was one year we show up and, for example, and they, the people there we had a contract with, I forget who, to provide from the high school, provide us with mattresses. These mattresses were like, you know, yay thick, right? And you basically slept on the ground in this high school. But they would bring the mattress from, I don't know where. I don't know where they brought it. So there was probably 100 and 120 of us that year. And Dave and I were like, all right, we got some good news and we got some bad news, guys. And good news is we got mattresses. Bad news is we only have half of what we need. So for those of you guys that, you know, want mattresses, show up, come on up and get a mattress. And it was as a way also to kind of test to see who do we have working with us, you know?
So like Gideon, you took him to the water
Yeah,
to
exactly.
test them out, huh?
Tested them out, and yeah, and you know, then we got more mattresses like a day later, you know, so it was just one night or two nights that we had to suffer. But I mean, you suffer the whole time, don't get me wrong, because these mattresses are like terrible. But you know, that's one story. Another story is going to construction, right? So we had a construction project and going to these houses. Now I'm not a construction guy at all, like zero, right? So I'm glad Dave was there with me because he understood a lot more from that. And we had usually in the construction projects, you had one or two guys that were what we call the ringers, right? Like they knew what they were doing, and then everybody else, all the other guys, are there to help. Like, hey, get bucket of this, get this, go get the paint from the store, whatever. And and one day, I believe, yeah, one of the guys, I think one of the ringers, like didn't show up, or he decided to go home, or you know, like he was done. And I'm like, okay, what happened here? But all the guys just took on and just kept on going. You know, they figured it out and they did it. And we basically built. We didn't build it, but we repaired a home for some really poor people there. You know, and you have 2 weeks, like 2 weeks to get the supplies. When you go there, we didn't know what was needed to be done, right? Now get supplies, get the people to do the right stuff, like, and then leave in 2 weeks. And like, if you finish it, great. If you don't, do you just leave it half done? You know, it was very, very, very tough. The Another one of the coolest parts was the evenings. After everybody would do their projects in the evenings, would always have like kind of a chapel, and it wasn't just for us. It was actually we opened it to the community, and we'd ask people from the community to come to these chapels, and we'd have like sometimes we'd have guest musicians, for example. Sometimes we'd have you know, plays or whatnot. I remember we had Petri Bodea one year. He came with us and he led worship. That was his ministry. Like, hey, provide the music aspect of this chapel. And then another we had, I don't know if you remember, Pocaitzi. Remember that group?
Yes,
Yeah,
of course.
of course. We had Continental come 1 year or 2 years. Yeah, we had all kinds of, you know, people that joined along and came and ministered. And so yeah, I mean, there was never a dull moment, never a dull day. I would love to look through pictures and videos to remember more, you know, more things that we did and how the days went and all that. But, you know, it's been 20 years
We'll try
plus.
to add some pictures here just to reminisce a little bit. John, I don't know if you, one of the things I also remember, you guys had a carnival day, and
Yes. Yes, we brought those inflatables, right? The big old slides and the bouncy houses, and we had a tent out there. That's where we on one of the in Don Duchesne, I believe. Or Don Duchesne, or was it Ungen?
I think that was in Ungiani.
That was in Ungen, the tent, yes. And yeah, I mean, and we had lineup, and we brought like Vata pe butts, which is the cotton candy machines, and we had all kinds of things for the kids. And the cool part was the kids were coming to these things, but guess what? They were bringing their parents, right? So the kids would bring their parents to these, and then we get to minister to the parents too, which was really, really cool.
So again, just for the broader audience, this village, taking a village by a storm, ended up being later years taking out almost the whole city by a storm because we moved to a city project. But anyway, the concept was the same. We split up on all these little teams. So you guys were really heading a small town essentially because you had a lot of people. They were split into a bunch of teams like ministries, as I mentioned. And then at night we would all get together for chapel, where people were invited. And towards the end of the week, if I remember correctly, we would have a service where we'd have a huge evangelism service, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I believe the carnival kind of led to that moment of inviting people out, and that was our way to attract people.
Yeah.
To the. So there's a couple of moments that I remember that are tied to me. One of them, and the second one is more just a general. I remember the medical spa. If you remember, they're washing feet.
Mm-hmm.
And these ladies would give them, besides washing their feet, they would hand them these slippers and like a brand new pair of socks. It was our way of serving them. And I remember you could track who was coming back to chapel at night because you could see these slippers in town.
Yeah. So these are people that didn't even have shoes. A lot of them, like they would walk through the dirt and all that stuff and a lot of them were diabetics. I mean, and that's the worst thing you could do for your feet. Like it's just terrible. Get an infection in the feet, it won't heal. You don't have the proper medical care. So, anyways, these people would come to these spas, right? And we'd have like 4 girls at a time, and they would rotate just to kind of take breaks and stuff. But these 4 girls would have like music playing, worship music playing. They would sing, and the whole time they would have these other women and men with their feet soaked in this tub where they would wash their feet. They would give them pedicures. They would take care of their feet. They would lotion them up, and and then they would give them, like you said, pair of socks and those loafers. And yeah, you could see them in the evening chapel, and they'd come in, all the loafers. They were so proud of those. Or you'd see them in the middle of the village or at the market, wearing them. We're like, well, we know where you were this morning, or this week. Yeah, but that ministry, that spa ministry, was crazy. It was just that what these girls were able to do, and and just present the gospel.
Yep.
Oh man, I mean, it was beautiful, beautiful.
Absolutely. I think it's one of those, another project that, the hands and feet of Jesus, because essentially these people probably had never received remotely anything like this kind of service, like a full-blown spa, where these girls will come from all over the place, Romania, the US, and get down to the level, including for men, they would wash their feet coming right out of the street. I actually did it once, and honestly, I could not have done it besides that one time. Because you have to have a really strong stomach, I'm telling you. And even that one time I just tried it out, I don't know how the girls did it, honestly, because as I was like cutting somebody's toenail, like it flew across the room. Sorry for the description, but I don't know how they did it, honestly, man. I don't know how they did it. And I think only love could get you through some moments like that. But these women, I remember, I mean, it was like, I don't know. I feel like in a way, when I just peeked in once in a while, walking by that room, these girls would connect with these women that would sit there. And remember, we even had the hair project.
Oh yeah,
was that under your tenure? Right? They would do their hair.
It was coming and going from what I remember. Like, because we needed people that can cut the hair to come, and I think I don't know how often we had it. I don't remember. I don't remember what year it was. Okay. But yeah, I mean, that's a bit, but it was cool because you had them there, that was the other thing. They're technically kind of, I mean, I'm going to use the word trapped because their feet are all wet, right? They can't go anywhere. And now they're kind of at your mercy to present them the gospel and tell them about Jesus.
So John, the other story I was going to mention that's directly related to me, one year I remember that you guys had the carnival, and Philo Tsifra and I decided to paint our faces, and a bunch of people did because they're like all kinds of heroes, like superheroes, and we were walking down the middle of the street coming back from the carnival, and the cops stopped us and they started to ID us, and we didn't have any ID on us because we went to the carnival. I don't know. And I remember that did not go well.
I didn't know this story. Really?
Dave had to come down, I believe, with Gheorghe and pretty much bail us out. Not that we didn't do anything. Right. We just didn't have ID. So but we had our faces painted because, I don't know, we were like Batman or something. And we were just walking back to the headquarters, if you would. Then anyway, that was not a,
That's hilarious. I
yep.
forgot that story.
They put us in the back of that van with a bunch of other people, sort of from our team, because there was a few of us walking, like, we don't know you guys, you don't have ID, you're painted, I don't know who you are, They pulled all this stuff. I don't know, maybe they wanted some money, but you guys showed up. I mean, it was kind of funny at the end of the day, but it was not that funny in the moment.
We're like, great. We're getting arrested for doing nothing. That's awesome.
Exactly. So, John, there was another story that I remember you mentioning regarding a guy punching.
Yeah. So this is kind of like how I mentioned earlier how God's protection was always over us. There was a gentleman that came. He was either from Moldova or from Romania, but I think he was from Moldova, and he came to serve. And we kind of accepted him. We let him come serve. But then one day something happened, and I don't remember what happened, what triggered it, but he got super upset, and he was upset and creating all kinds of issues, all kinds of raising havoc around him. People were coming to David and I'm like, hey, dude, this guy's like losing it. My guys might want to check. I'm like, great, never have to deal with this. Now we got to deal with this. Let's go. And he ended up like punching a glass window and broke it. And eventually we calmed him down, or he calmed down, and then I think you showed up with Kat or somebody else, and you ended up taking him to the train station. Well, that's that side of the story. There's another side of that story which I found out a day later after all that happened. In America, in Fullerton, California, Pastor Kurt Korth, his wife Amy, the Holy Spirit told her to just pray for us. Now, there's a few people from their church that were on that mission trip, but they were in a different project. They were at the orphanage project, but she prayed for us for the village project during that time that we were dealing with this. And, like, come to find out, and I asked, like, I'm like, well, what time were you praying? I try to make the math with the hours passed, and also, and she was literally praying for us during that time that all this, like, happened. And, it was just such a good testament to see that prayer works, and that, you can go on a mission trip, you can donate to a mission trip, you can sponsor people, you can do all that, but you always need prayer warriors to stay in prayer for you while you're doing this kind of ministry, because there's all kinds of things that happen spiritually to you, around you, and that can affect you in very negative ways. And when you have prayer warriors, when you have people that pray for you back at home or there locally, like constantly, it means so much. So, when we go to like churches and we present our ministry and we always ask for prayer, that's real. That's not a segue to ask for money. Asking for prayer is very real. And I want to, whoever listens to this, when people ask for prayer, pray for them. Okay. If you can't go on the trip, you can't donate, there's always prayer, and prayer matters so much. Okay. So, yeah, so Pastor Kurt's wife, Amy, prayed for us, and that thing ended with a small little broken window, and it was his own hand. So nobody got hurt, nothing. The guy could have lost it and started hurting people. Would go around punching. I don't know what was in his mind, what was in his head, what was happening to him, right? Again, we're a bunch of yahoos. I don't know. I don't have a mental degree or a psychologist on staff to go, hey, can you talk this guy down, or so yeah.
I do remember going to the train station. I don't remember the whole incident, but I do remember taking somebody to the train station. But anyway, to me, that's a miracle. It's nothing short of a miracle. How would she have known?
Nope.
I mean, I want to also say that I think she would have been more familiar with Josh, right?
Yeah.
Who was at the other project. It would have made sense to pray for them, not for you guys.
Not the village project,
John, I want to mention that I had a similar story, which to me is a straight up miracle. It is very similar. Anka Husu and I were traveling. We went to Moldova on a winter trip, and on the way out of Moldova back to Romania, we were trying to get to Adi's house. We had somebody take us across the border, so we jumped into his car, put our luggage, but the way the cross point we were trying to get to the border, it was actually, we had to kind of climb down this, I wouldn't say mountain, it was more like a hill, but it was very windy roads. And it started snowing pretty bad. And this guy was like a new driver. He just got his license not long ago. And as we're driving down this mountain, and it's getting really slippery, I'm like starting to freak out because first of all, he was very nervous and out of control. And the car was just slipping. And one of the curbs, he couldn't turn anymore. He actually kept on going straight. And we were basically headed for this ravine, and that would have been the end of us. Somehow, in that whole entire moment, as we were headed for the ravine, we ran into this pile of dirt. And that's how the car stopped. So we were able to somehow back it up and continue. And we got to meet Adi. Everything was okay. But had that dirt not been there,
Right.
Now I will say this: the dirt, there were piles of dirt throughout the road, because that's what they would use instead of salt to salt the roads. But because the basically the snow had just started, they didn't have anybody to, I guess, spread this dirt. But the point is, that pile could have been anywhere, but we happened to run into that pile right before we went over the ravine. Wow. Anyway, so we got back to the States. About 2 weeks later, Anka tells me, hey, let me tell you something. There's this girl, Laura Mado. She's from Detroit. She called me up a few days ago or whatever. And guess what she told me? She asked me, what happened to you guys on this day at this hour?
It's awesome.
And Anka, I guess, was like, why? Well, let me think back. It's like, well, because something woke me up in the middle of the night and told me to pray for you, and specifically pray for a heap of protection. Mm-hmm. And guess what stopped the freaking, the car from going overboard? It was the heap, essentially a heap of dirt. A heap of protection.
That's
and
awesome.
She had no way of knowing. When we kind of calculated back the time, it was pretty much that time we were pretty much riding across the border. So she had no way of knowing that. We were not in touch with her. I don't think Anka was that close to her to constantly update her on where we're at. I see it as an absolute miracle. There's no way of her knowing, just like the lady that you spoke of. And I think something special happens many times when you go on these trips and you put yourself out there for God, I guess. Maybe he works in a much more powerful way. Not that he wouldn't do it at home. I don't know. I just saw his hand. To me, that was a miracle. One of the miracles of my life that I can attest to. Yeah. Because there's no way in those scenarios anybody would have known. So.
Right. Exactly.
Very cool. So John, I think what you and Dave did at the Village Project, I mean, essentially like preparing the ground for people to do their work. I think it's awesome that the body of Christ is so versatile, right? Like you said, hey, you didn't do construction, but there were people there that did it no problems, no issue. There are people that did construction, but they didn't do physical therapy, or they were not good at leading. Like you guys are great at logistics that came up. I guess we'll move on but I wanted to ask one more thing. I remember there was a story about this van.
Oh, yeah. So we had a van that so the first year of Dondushen, I think we stayed in Turnova, but we would go every day to Dondushen to minister there. And we had the 15-passenger van. Well, we had to go back and forth multiple times, right? Because there were so many of us when we were serving there. So one day, Dave and I were like, let's see how many people we can fit in this 15-passenger van, because that's safe. So I think we fit, and we've shot a videotape of them coming out of the van.
Oh, I got to find that. I got to find it.
I have
you
it.
do, John. You got to send it. We got to put it here.
Okay. There was 36 people that fit into that van. So a big bus fits 50. This is a 15-passenger van. This fit 36. And yeah, that video seems like it never ends. People just coming out. It's crazy. 34, 36. I think it was 36.
In case you guys wanted to find out how many you can squeeze in a 15-passenger van, Econoline. This is the video to watch.
Forward.
Hopefully we can pull it up for you and show it here. But I mean, there is a lot of fun moments. I mean, I think we don't want to mislead people and say, oh, it's all like work, and it's a lot of fun and connecting moments.
It's a lot. You build a lot of connections with people from all over the world, right? All the people from America were not from LA or from Detroit, or they were from all over. They would come, and you build connections, you build relationships with the people from Romania, people in Moldova. Like, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. There's so many marriages that came out of Charity Cup mission trips. Unbelievable. Like, so many, 20 plus, easy 20 plus. I'm going to say 30 plus, probably easy. So
I reflected a little bit with it, I think with Adi, and honestly, we came in the hundreds. Because there's because it's not just the mission. We're talking soccer tournaments. We're talking all these other projects, probably in the hundreds, we think.
Oh, that's true.
So,
I didn't even think of the other ones. You're right.
so I mean, I think a lot of people might be sitting there and thinking, "What? That's what you guys went to the mission trip for?"
Right.
I think what my answer would be, you know, God had this carrot sometimes, and George has this, right? The carrot that dangles in front of you, and sometimes you do things that God needs you to do, and sometimes the carrot is could be that, like you will hope to meet somebody.
Yeah.
But where else would you want to meet somebody? What a better place to
Right.
meet somebody than them serving next to
Yep.
you. And it's not like
Yep.
you had time to just have fun all day. It wasn't. You had to do stuff together.
Oh yeah, you have to solve issues. You have to like deal with conditions that were not prime, like especially girls, putting her in those conditions with this mattress and then no mirrors and then 20 of them sleeping in one room. Like what? Like so my buddy has a saying. He's like, people are like tea bags. You really get to know them once you put them in hot water, then you really get to know who they are. So that was hot water,
That was
2 weeks. It was hot water. So, you got to see how people, where their heart is. Like, what are they actually fighting for in life? What are they seeking? What are their goals? What are they motivated by? Is it a comfortable bed? Is it like, hey, make sure my makeup is done and I'm good to go now. I can go serve. Like, or is it like, no, let's help this person. This person needs it. What can we do to make this happen? I'll tell you another story of me. We were in again, and again, Dave and I were leading it, and we got to a point in the mission trip where we were out of money. Like we were like, wow, I don't know if we've ever had that point. We were like, we're out of money. What are we gonna do? By tomorrow, we're gonna have no more money to, continue serving and doing all this. And back then I used to have like long hair. We I decided, I'm like, and I had long hair for a long time. Like I was known as the guy with the long hair. And I decided, no, I'm gonna shave my head. I'm gonna buzz cut it to raise money. And we raised like some stupid like 6 grand, 4 or 6 grand.
for the people that were there.
People that were there and other people like were like, no, I'll donate to see you bald, sure, And then and people in the United States, like I said, hey, I'm gonna do this, and you willing to help? It was just like a spur of the moment idea, like it was just, and it wasn't because like I wanted a haircut. It wasn't because let's do something fun. It was like we were out of money, like we needed money. What do we do? We prayed, of course, and all that, but then God put that idea in my head. We raised so we were good. It was, it's just something that happens on the mission field.
I mean, like the sacrificial lamb, John.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but
well, in this
whatever.
scenario, you're willing to like
Yeah,
let go of like the beautiful hair that you grew. That's exactly the heart of it. There was definitely beautiful moments and fun times. Don't get us wrong, but at the same time, if you wanted to meet somebody and kind of see and what exactly they're like, that's a great place to go. Absolutely.
yeah,
For the record, we did not encourage, or as much as we could, did not allow romantic relationships to start during the trip. You
correct,
could start them after. There was
correct.
actually a camp at the last day, 2 days of evaluation where we encourage people go ahead and exchange numbers or whatever, chat with each other. But it should be not done during the trip because it would be very
Correct.
distracting. There were wonderful people there. To this day, I mean, we have friends across the world that at a moment's notice we can call them and we can probably show up at their place
Yeah,
or vice versa because of these experiences. So, yeah.
100%.
John, another moment that comes to mind with you was in Honduras. I I remember we went to Honduras together in that trip. Dani Petishor invited us, and you were one of the guys. One of the moments that comes to mind, were you on the trip when we played soccer against sort of the local team?
I think I was on that trip, but I was terrible. I was so out of shape at that. And those guys were good, man. Like they were like, they were their stars. And I was like, wow, there's no way we can keep up with these people,
I
you
think
know?
it ended up being actually a tight game because we did.
I'm talking about me. I don't remember the team. I just remember I was like, wow, these guys are running circles around me. I have no business being on this field. That's the game I remember. So I don't know if that's the same year or the same game you're talking about, but I just that marked me because I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, there's levels to soccer, and I'm not at that level. you know. So,
But John,
anyways, but
you were pretty athletic, so maybe soccer wasn't your thing, but you were the
yeah,
volleyball.
soccer. Yeah, but oh yeah, all the other sports I played, soccer was something that you have to invest in, and you have to be cardiovascularly fit. Like you can't, you can play volleyball or even basketball and not be so cardiovascularly fit, but soccer, you got to go. There's no, prancing around. There's like you got to go. If you don't go, somebody's gonna go around you and see you
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
So yeah.
But now, just going through the memory lane, I remember you were reffing the volleyball tournaments that we had for a while. You're one of the main refs.
Hmm.
So obviously you played volleyball. More recently,
Yeah.
your daughter was in Tanzania, also
Hmm.
playing volleyball and
Hmm.
coaching the girls there. Did you have anything to do with her passion for volleyball?
I mean, yeah, I played volleyball and I encouraged her like, hey, let's play volleyball. Let's go in the backyard. Let me teach you some things. And yeah, I did. I I wanted her to play some kind of sport, right? And I would prefer she play a sport that I'm good at or I love, so that I can teach her and be a guide for her. Yeah. And volleyball was one of them. Yeah. She absolutely fell in love with it since eighth grade and she's doing great. Yeah, she loves it.
Yeah.
So,
What was your, kind of transitioning towards the discussion? Because I think something amazing happened a couple years ago with the Tanzania trip. Now we had a Tanzania trip for maybe a few years back, but I think something happened
right.
special in 2024 where a bunch of us, me included, went to Tanzania and brought the kids. I didn't get to because my kids are
Yeah.
younger, but you guys did. What was your?
Yeah, I mean, you brought your niece, your sister's kid, which is, she's of age and stuff, so that was nice. But yeah, the rest of us brought our kids and our daughters and our sons that are around that age, 14 to 16. At that time, they were between 14 and 16. And just to see them serving they served a lot in the sports ministry. They served with the special needs kids in Hope House over there. They served with the orphanage, and just to see them actually serve and connect with these kids and teach the gospel and preach the gospel was just, oh man, it's full circle. I loved it. And the fact that, all of us, like the friends, Danny Herdian, Adi Ambrosie, Katalin, Yuga, George Purach, me, you with your niece, like we all got to bring us too, and our kids, like, and Sam Raetsky with his
Yep.
kids too, like, come on. It was a dream come true. That trip will live in infamy, man, in my mind.
I agree, and that's why to me it was special. I don't know if we're able to replicate that in the future, but I thought it was even more special. Obviously, my niece came. I can't. My niece came. It wasn't only attributed to me because she also made friends with these girls that invited her to go, and my
Yes.
sister obviously was more comfortable to send her with me. But it must have been like extra special for you to see your daughter go and serve, and like you said, full
Yeah.
circle. Like,
Yeah.
um,
It was a very I'm gonna say a selfish, proud moment, dad moment, but it was a very proud moment, like as in like, thank you, God, like thank you so much for that opportunity. Thank you that I got to serve with her at such a young age. Thank you that she gets to see these kind of qualities in a man, right? Who is her dad, and that she can strive for whoever she's gonna marry to have qualities like this or better. Because that's what we want from our girls, right? When they get married, we want a good man, somebody that has the right um, goals in life, has the right serving heart uh, in life, and wants the best for their wife. So, I'm just eternally grateful to God for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And then besides that, from what I see when I visit you guys, apparently there's a big bond that happened among these young people where it seems like
Yes.
almost the baton is slowly being passed on and they're taking it.
Yeah. They're a huge, like, boom. These kids just like, they're all best friends. It's like they've known each other since birth, and they technically have, but they all live in different parts of the country, right? Because there are kids, so whenever we meet up, they would know each other as kids, but they didn't know each other. One lives in Detroit, one is in North Carolina, a few are in North Carolina, a few are here in Orange County or in LA. like, they didn't really know each other, but after this trip, I mean, bonds like crazy. They go on, youth camps together now. They winter youth camp, summer youth camp, and they can't wait. And they just love hanging out. They hang out with each other every day through these guys, through the phones, and
Th-
yeah,
that's what I hear, John. That even George was telling me
yeah,
they're talking every day, or
every day.
it seems like deja vu, because I seem to remember some relations that were formed and forged so strongly
Yeah,
by just traveling together and meeting you guys
yeah,
coming to Detroit, us coming here to LA,
yep,
and then I feel like the ultimate bond was on these trips, right? Because you got
yes,
to really had to work as a team, and something special happened there, and I think that's probably what they experienced. And that's why I think the
yeah.
bond got so strong. And I don't know, I highly recommend it for others that are listening, that if you want to send their kids, um, yeah,
100%. And if, I mean, go with your kids, like if you can go with them, go. Like that's,
absolutely,
man,
absolutely. And I think there was a few
yeah,
that
it's
followed, like
beautiful.
Mike Raetsky and his kids,
Yeah,
Victor Roshu from Detroit, and a few others.
yeah,
Teo, there's definitely a few people that have gone, and I think Robert Adi, who started it, I think they did a phenomenal job with Melissa. That it was just, I feel like
yep,
I was a shot and poof, like
yeah,
everything was so well
yeah.
organized. Yeah, so thank God for that team. And
Yeah, that was one of the other things that I loved seeing on that Tanzania 24 trip was, Adi brought his son. His son was married and 30 years old, but I remember in 2004 when I went to Moldova, little Robert was like this little kid, 5-year-old kid that, would just run around and get in people's ways and just cute and all that. But now he's running a mission trip and running it well, like great. I loved seeing that.
yeah, absolutely, I
It's,
felt like we were in such good hands. And like, right, back in the day when we were going, we had to handle a lot of those behind the scenes things. Now, like, we were handled and they took care of it.
yeah,
And you tell me
yeah.
where I need to go. It's very different
And I'll
feeling,
be
and
there. Yep.
we loved it. Man, we had some beautiful moments in Tanzania. I remember that game we played at night, and it got so competitive.
Oh
And
yeah.
then the visits we went, and then meeting some of the people that ended up coming to the States and visiting here, Cyprian. And by the way, I don't know if I mentioned at the last tournament in Detroit, we had Cyprian here. You probably already know that,
Hmm.
but Gabi from Honduras, if you remember Gabi,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
she kind of served with us, and pretty much facilitated all these connections in Honduras. She actually stayed at our house, and what a great experience! Like, my wife got to meet her, and it was just man. We reminisced and about all the great things we did through the years with her, and we hopefully will do some more. So it was great. She was
That's
really great. I had her on the
that's awesome. Yeah,
podcast.
she's an amazing woman. Amazing woman. All the work she does, just awesome. She's so driven. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully we'll see her at the next core retreat. By the way, I'll plug in the core retreat. I hope you guys will make it. It's in February 20th, that weekend. You're welcome to come if you're John.
Yeah.
It's going to be in your backyard over there.
Yes, we're gonna host it at Agape Christian Church in Yorba Linda, California. It'll be in the Fellowship Hall. That's Saturday. Yep, definitely come.
Absolutely. So it's a time, if you want to plug in and find out what Charity Cup's about and what's going on and what's happening next, this is the place to come and check it out and meet the people, because essentially that's what it's about. We don't have some magic formula. We just want to place ourselves at God's disposal. So, John, kind of moving on to the next phase here, wanted to ask you what's next for John Dobrea. So I know John Dobrea as a physical therapist. I know him as a musician. I know him as a volleyball player. I know him as you know, a golf tournament organizer. I know you as leading worship at your church, leading the Village Project. What's next?
Uh, Next, I really want to go to Cuba when we go there with Charity Cup. So I'll plug that in. Hopefully that is in the works. We had George and Adi go over there for a little scout trip in 2025. And yeah, hopefully that comes to fruition. I'd love to go to that and see what God has in plan for us there. Another thing is I'm working at our church right now with a few other people on songwriting. I'd love to be able to write a full album for our church. Songs that God's blessed us with through His creative powers, and He's a creator. He's the most creative God there is, and I really appreciate that. And I hope He continues to pour into that. So that's another thing that's coming up next. Family, I really want to we're trying to do more and more things with the kids, trips and all that stuff. I really, they're 14, 16, and 17. They're going to start going to college. Things are going to start changing soon. And, they're going to be out of the house and whatnot, and traveling with them, being with them is going to kind of
Be a luxury.
yeah. So, right now I still got them. I still pay for everything. So
Yeah.
still got them.
John,
I can take advantage of spending time with them.
I want to just go back a little bit to what you mentioned about the worship project for your church. Like, what does that look like? If you can kind of open that up a little bit, what does that encompass? Are you writing the songs? Are you writing as a team? Are you writing the music? What does that look like?
So we're writing the lyrics and the music, yes. And the way that looks like, here, I'll tell you kind of how I run it. So we're 2 weeks into it. This week will be the third week. And there's 5 people that are on this team, and they're 5 core people. So these people are going to, the idea is, and, we talked about earlier, Mission One meeting every Saturday for 4 hours.
That's right.
Well, yeah. We're meeting every week on either Tuesday evening or Wednesday evening for 2+ hours, however long, until we say, okay, that's enough. Like, when not every week, that's the plan, is every week to meet with these 5 people for the first 5 or 6 weeks. And then after that, I actually want to open it to a lot more people, like 2 or 3 at a time from our worship team, that can come in and also be part of this songwriting process. Because there's so many creative people, but it's tough when you're writing, it's really tough for going from week to week with ideas and melody lines and all that to change if there's always changing, if there's always different people, right? So I want to keep core of 5 and then add 2 or 3 every week to that later. So that's what, it is a commitment. It's pretty much a weekly commitment. It's like another technically church service, but it's not a church service. We spend time at the beginning just kind of connecting. Then we pray. We each pray. We have our prayer requests. What are we praying for? We always pray, like, God to just reveal Himself through these songs. And then we like kind of pick up of where we left from last week. And then we try to write stuff.
So, yeah. John, what is like the end product like? And how does it minister to people? Is it for the people at your church? Is it meant to go broader?
It primarily is for the people at our church. That's what we belong to, the church. We want to bless our community here. If it blesses it broader, that's fine, and that's okay. And it'll probably be a byproduct, but that's not the end goal. The goal is to be a blessing to the 400 or 500 members that are at Agape Church. And if that comes to fruition, then the goal is attained. The goal is not to sell it and make millions or anything like that. Like, that's not what the goal is. The goal is to be a blessing to our church, and it's going to be a blessing through a few different ways. One is obviously people can listen to it and worship to it at home, right? It could be that kind of blessing. 2, it's a blessing for the people that write the songs, and to see that connection that you have with God, and to see how that grows. Because you don't just write songs. Organic songs don't just come up with, from trying to like pen and paper and whatever. They're poured through the Holy Spirit. Like, they're poured. I woke up the other day. This is great. I love when this happens. I woke up at 3:33 a.m. fully awake, and I was just like, why? Right? Like, this is not cool. And I was like, God, why'd you wake me up? Because I'm like, there's no reason for me to wake up right now. Like, why don't you bless me with a song? Like, give me something, And I literally just prayed that, and He did, like that. And He did. And He blessed me with a chorus, with a melody and the words, and then with a verse, just the words. Right? So I was like, okay, thanks.
Can you can you share or
no, so I just grabbed my phone and I just I grabbed my phone and I just recorded it, and stuff. So I haven't worked it yet.
Okay.
You know, I haven't even presented it to the team yet. So I want to, you know, like when the time comes, I will. But you know, like that kind of stuff doesn't come from sitting there. Okay, I want to write a song about. No, 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 no. You know, it's organic. It's just like, God, what do you want me to say? Like, what do you feel like needs to be said? So, you know, like that literally happened last week, right? So that's what, you know, I want to be a blessing for the church, but I also wanted to be a blessing for the worship team from writing this. I think it creates a deeper personal relationship with Jesus, and that's what it's about.
Right. So it's part of it is a mentorship for the people
Yeah,
involved. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And is this would it end up like a video format or recorded or?
I'm not sure. I mean, that's down the line, but it'll definitely be like an MP3 format, like a Spotify thing, or
Mhm.
you know, like on streaming services, sure. But if we put videos to them, I don't know. I mean, that costs more money. That costs a lot. That's a lot of time. If that's something that, you know, God says, no, I want you guys to do that, then we'll do it. You know, and He'll provide the means for it. I have no problem with that.
Amen. Amen.
So, yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool. This kind of reminds me of the CD you guys put out with Mission
the
One.
mission one. Yeah,
Um, what was that like? And I don't know if
we
what's your
we were a bunch of
favorite?
yahoos,
Bunch of yahoos, right?
trying to figure out how to put together a CD and songs, and yeah, that was fun. That was good times, and record them in a in a clothing store.
Who came up with the idea, and what thoughts do you have on it?
We all came up with the idea. I mean, we all wanted to record it. I mean, but you know, Claudia Pahidian back then, Claudia Johnston now, she is the one that wrote a lot of the songs. You know, I wrote one of them, but yeah, she wrote a lot of those, and you know, everybody contributed to it with their instrument, with parts, with different layers and whatnot, and yeah, even like I said, Brian Bettis, you know, played drums for like 2 or 3 of the songs on there, and yeah, it was a very fun project. It was a very learning project. I learned a lot of things during that time. You know, I was going through college, trying to figure out my life, trying to earn a degree and record an album, and you know, still travel with Meshuana and lead worship at conferences and set up conferences and all that. So it was a very busy time in my life, but it was such a blessing. I mean, that was, yeah. And we managed to record, to write 8 songs, and we recorded them and put them on an album. And yeah, I think the opening to the podcast is one of those songs, right? One Life to Give. From I know I have a friend who has his license plate says One Life to Give, and he actually lives near me. So every time I see him on the street, it's so cool. But that was the message. That was mission one. It's like, dude, we have one life to give. Like, who do you give it to? What do you do with it? You know, just like Charity Cup, make life count, right? Like, make your life count, do something with it. Don't just go through life, like living, going to work, going home, going to work, watch TV, home, you know, do something with it. So make it count. So yeah, that was kind of the idea of that album.
So that's exactly, I think you touched upon a perfect point, because that's one of the reasons I listen to your CD quite a lot. Maybe not now as much as I used to.
Right.
But that was definitely one of my favorite songs, and I think that song really does very well speak of the message of this podcast. Make your life count. One life to give is very exactly pretty much it. So the opening and the outro are both from that CD. So John, I'm curious, what is your favorite song from that, and which song did you write?
I wrote Meet Me Here, and favorite song, well, favorite lyrically, like message-wise, is One Life to Give. Favorite musically is, shoot, I can't think of the song right now. I want to say it's the second song on the album. I can't think of the title. But it has a key change in it, so I like the music. We put a violin in there, guitar solo, like just musically, you know, that's my favorite. So it's tough to like one favorite song. Like I like them for different aspects of them, you know, and so yeah, that's kind of my answer to that.
Yeah. John, is there anywhere where people can listen to the whole entire album? Like back in the day it was a CD, but I don't know about
Yeah,
now.
no, because I don't know how to put it up on Spotify. So if anybody knows how to do that, I have the MP3s, and you know, if it's just a simple thing, I don't know if you have to give your rights away, or how all that works to put stuff on. I don't understand it. I don't know it. So I'm still waiting for that one person that knows how to do it to teach me, and then we can put them up.
I think it'd be great, John, because I think that's a legacy. At the end of the day, your kids, your grandkids will have this as a legacy.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that I think it touched upon a lot of lives. I remember back when you guys came out with it, a lot of people were listening to it, and I hear now like the young people sort of in this group of Charity Cup are listening to it again. At least that's what George was telling
Yeah,
me.
they've asked me like, hey, what are the songs? Can you give us the song? I'm like, sure, here you go. Yeah, and they enjoy them.
I think at the very least, like YouTube, if you need help, I can do that.
Yeah,
Spotify, I'm not as familiar with, but maybe somebody in the audience here can help us with that.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so
I'd love that.
yeah, that's awesome. So, anyway, congrats on that. That's a beautiful achievement. So, as we wrap it up, the name of the podcast is "Make Your Life Count," and I think I think you encompass that really well. I also want to mention that not only from all the ministry servings that you do, but I think the way you instilled in your kids. I guess one of my questions before I segue into sort of my last question: how do you balance all of that? Right, you're doing music, you're a physical therapist, you're balancing the
Well,
kid. How do you balance all of that?
first you have a perfect partner for you, right? And not a perfect partner, but perfect partner for you. So, I mean, obviously, like without Lavi, there's no way I would be able to do any of this. I remember back when I used to serve at Emmanuel Church, we rented from a Jewish temple, and every morning we'd have to go set up the sound, lead worship, do church, and then in the evening we'd have to tear it down because it was in our building. So it was a full, more than 8-hour day on those Sundays, and Lavi would be home with 3 little kids, or she'd come to church with 3 little kids, and yeah, and she helped big time, like So anyway, so that's number one. Um, uh, Perfect partner. The second thing is not overdoing things. Like, for example, the worship ministry. That's all I do is worship ministry at church. I do one more thing, but that's a once a year thing. But I'm not I don't serve at Sunday school. I don't, serve in another ministry. I just focus on the worship ministry aspect of the church, and that's it. All the other things, I try not to burn out. I've gone through burnout. It's not cool. It's not fun. It's not good for anybody. You're not the only one that pays for the burnout. Other people in your life do. And I highly don't recommend people, if you notice that you get into a burnout, you need to like back up and figure out what you're doing wrong and what you need to let go of. And the other thing is saying no a lot. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no to ministry. Absolutely. And that's a big, the Romanian community, that's a big faux pas. Cum spui nu la lucrarea Domnului? No, no, no. Nu spun nu la lucrarea Domnului. Eu spun nu că eu nu pot să fac this aspect of lucrarea Domnului. So, that's a few things that I do to kind of try to balance all of this.
Very good advice. Very good, John. I hope we can take that to heart and practice it. So I wanted to ask you like this final question, which is like the crux of this whole the main point of this whole entire podcast. So as you know, the name of the podcast is Make Your Life Count. So I want to know if you were to give your younger self advice, or somebody younger, how to make their life count, what would you tell them?
Well, obviously, in everything you do it towards bringing glory to Christ and furthering His kingdom. That's how I make my life count. Every aspect of my life, be it family, be it work, be it church, is all towards that, and that's how I feel we make life count. Some words of advice, I guess, for the younger generation or people that are starting in this. I want you to realize something, that I didn't realize back when I was, my early 20s, is that life is full of seasons, and we go through these seasons and changes and things, and life kind of moves at its own pace. And there's seasons to do stuff, and there's seasons to stop doing that stuff. And by stuff, I mean ministry, I mean jobs, I mean uh, how you serve at your local church. There might be seasons where you're a worship leader for 10 years, and then God may call you to go head up the missions department at your church, whatnot. You might go on a mission trip to Moldova and be sold out to go to Moldova, and then that season may end and you may go somewhere else, or you may not do missions anymore, or you may do a job that you make tons of money and you may support other missions at that time. So there's always seasons, but always be aware, like, just make sure, don't change the season just to change it, because God's calling you to that change. So always be very attentive, and always be listening to the Holy Spirit and what the Holy Spirit's telling you to do and what direction. And you know always have that conversation with God. Like, it's not a, okay, I'm gonna sit down and pray. It's a constant conversation. Like, God, where do you want me next? What do you want me to do? Am I doing this okay? How can I make this better? How can I do this better? So and that's a daily thing. I'm driving to my next patient's house, and a thought comes in my mind, like, hey, how can I do this better? Lord, am I doing this for the right reasons or whatnot? So it's the constant communication. When it says always be in prayer, that's what I think that means. Always be in that verse, prayer should never cease. That's what I mean. You're in a conversation with God. You're not just, okay, now it's time to pray for 30 minutes before bedtime. Nothing wrong with that. Feel free to do that. Nothing wrong with that. But it's a constant conversation. It's always allowing yourself to be open to the Holy Spirit and to the way God directs you in as you go through life.
I think that's excellent advice, whether you're younger or older.
Right.
And I think you noted the seasons, and I think it took a while for me personally to understand there are seasons. Like, don't freak out if you're going through a season. Like, don't just give up on the idea, because yeah. Anyway, John, awesome advice. Thank you so much. The last sort of thing as we wrap this up is this sort of segment called Perspectives. And what Perspectives is basically a bunch of words that I selected that I ask all my guests pretty much in the same order. And it's just your perspective on this one topic that I'm going to flash before you in less than 5 seconds. So pretty much the first thing comes to mind. So what do you think about politics?
Conservative.
Conservative, I like it. All right. What do you think about economy?
Economy. Oh, that's a battle. It depends who you ask. The economy is doing good. The economy is doing bad. You know what? When I think economy is, let's further God's economy, which is save souls.
Amen. Amen. What do you think about wealth?
Wealth is great as long as it's used with the right purpose and for the kingdom of God, and always realizing that, that wealth is not yours. It's God's blessing upon your life. And, do something with that wealth to further his kingdom.
Very good. And what do you think about truth?
Truth. There is such a thing as absolute truth, and his name is Jesus Christ, and all his teaching is in the Bible.
Awesome, John. What are your thoughts? I know this is not a date like a topic for you right now, but what do you think about dating?
Well,
your
I
kids
have
are
kids
at
that
that
are
age.
in that starting in that realm, and I'm not against dating as long as there is a goal for dating, which it should be marriage, right? So you don't date just to date for fun and do stupid stuff, but you date to get married and with a goal. So if you're not ready for marriage, should you be dating? I don't know.
All right. What do you think
Debatable.
about love? Love in this kind of the same arena here.
Yeah, love. I think of love as a verb. I think of love as a action. I think of love as a commitment, and not a feeling. It's yeah, there's feelings of love and all that, but it's a commitment. That's when I'll tell you my personal story with Lavi. When I was dating her, she was ready to say I love you, like before I did, but I told her, my conversation with her is the second you hear me I say I love you, that's for life. So you'll know that I will propose to you once you hear me say I love you. And that's
Yep.
exactly what happened.
Yeah, it's definitely used just.
Yeah, it's like just thrown around.
Yep. John, what about marriage? What are your thoughts on marriage?
Marriage is the best. Marriage is the best. If you think of love as a commitment and as a verb, marriage is awesome. Yeah, sometimes there's things you don't agree on and all that, but if the marriage is based on Christ and that's your foundation, I think you are starting on the right foot. But yeah, marriage, I highly recommend it.
Awesome. Okay, and that segue to family. What do you think about family?
I love family. I love my family. I love my three kids and my wife. Like I love spending time with them, doing stuff with them, vacations with them, investing in them, watching them grow, watching them, spend time with Jesus and get to know who Jesus is, and seeing Jesus work in their hearts and make changes in them. It's awesome. I love it.
Awesome. And I don't know if this is in the right order or not, but let's just say, what do you think about church?
Church is great. I love church. I think of church as when two or three people are gathered to praise his name and to worship him. That's what I think church is. We always, when you say church nowadays, you think of the institution, the building, the congregation, which there's nothing wrong with that. But, whenever two or three people gather, there's church. Like if you're there to worship him, it's church. So, yeah.
Amen. Okay. Purpose. What do you think about purpose?
I think in everything you do, you should have purpose and it should be intentional. That's one of my biggest words in life is intentionality, doing stuff with intention. And in order to do something with intentionality, it needs a purpose. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? So I highly value purpose.
Awesome. And almost last, but not last, quite. What do you think about eternity?
Eternity's coming. Here we go. I'm just waiting for it. Whenever it is, I just want to praise my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Eternity's great.
So then kind of leads us to the last word. I don't know. What do you think it is? I'll just
Jesus.
give it away. What do you think about Jesus?
Jesus, yes. My personal Lord and Savior died on the cross for my sins. Thank you. I'm eternally grateful. And he resurrected the third day. And for that, I am super blessed and want to follow him for the rest of my life.
Yeah, amen. Amen. Thank you so much. Well, John, I want to thank you on behalf of the audience and myself for joining us and sharing a lot of wisdom, a lot of nuggets of wisdom here for the whole entire podcast, including at the end here. So thank you for that. And hopefully, maybe we'll do another update in the future if we get a chance, if you have some time. Thank you. You're very gracious with your time, and I want to thank you for that. So
My
to the
pleasure.
audience, yep. And maybe if people want to get a hold of you, hopefully you'll give us an email, maybe something they can reach out to you if they have any questions about worship or anything.
John Dobrea, Dobrea at gmail.com.
Excellent.
Simple.
Awesome. You heard it here, guys. So we'll put it in the description as well. So without any further ado, to the audience, I want to thank you once again for joining us for this episode. I hope you were inspired once again and learn a million things about making a life count. And without any further ado, until next time, make your life count. God bless. See you next time.